Hello and welcome to Great Minds Tutorials. This is your favorite tutor, Khadiso. I'm back with another random exercise, and we're going to continue with the exercises which were recommended or were requested by one of the subscribers that we should do them. But before we can continue, there's something that we were working on that I want to quickly fix. I want to work on this. There's a method here which was called details, which required price. So what I did here is that I've passed price into here, which I shouldn't be doing that. I just thought about it now, but it's one of those things whenever you're programming, you just tend to forget about. Okay, so now in this case, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna remove price from here. Where is it? Okay, this is in the backend class. I'm gonna remove price here because there's no price there. I'm gonna remove price here, but in order for me to get the price, I'm just gonna have to call that method, which is price. It's possible for me to just call it here. Whenever I have to deal with price here, then inside here, I'm gonna say price, just like that. That should be able to work. So in this case, it means that I'm just calling that method, which is price, this method up here, and it's gonna give me the price which has been stored inside there. And this side, what I'll need to do then is that I'll need to remove this because it doesn't have that. And it should be able to calculate. So let's just try it before we continue with the other exercise from the list of the concrete classes. So even in this episode, I'm gonna be doing concrete classes. I'm gonna focus a little bit on concrete classes so that we get the information and we become comfortable with the information. And as you can see, price is still being calculated, which means that it's working perfectly fine. So I'm gonna stop that for now. I'm gonna stop that for now. Let me cancel the run. All right, so now what happens is I'm gonna get this side and I'm gonna have to then continue with the other one. So let me close this, case closed. Let's continue with the next question. And then going down to the next question, question number 2, it says that you must create the following concrete class called assessment and as shown in the UML diagram. So you need to always go down to, so yeah, it says now create an application called TPG1280 assessment. So this is the application side. So you can copy this. You go to NetBeans. And then when you get here, you'll say new project, Java with end, paste here. And there we go. Okay, let's just quickly go back. Okay, now we go back to this UML diagram up here. As I've explained previously, this is the name of the class. Those are your private fields or attributes. These are your constructors, your setters methods, your getters method. And we also have a method which is going to calculate the level of difficulty and it's going to return a string. So now what we're going to do is that when we get here, click here, new Java class. So let's say it must be called assessment, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it's called assessment. And what we're going to do is that we have an option of choosing the default package, which is the one which is already existing. But in this case, we do not need to do any imports and all of those kind of stuff, meaning that they're going to be working under one package. So let us just do that. It's still fine. and then we can say finish, but usually put it in a separate package. Have it in a separate package. So you can have it in a separate package. Maybe you can say assessment. Like that is still fine. So it's going to package it in a new package called assessment. And there we go. That is it. So now, yeah, when we get here, we need to have a private field. So it's private or attributes, string code, private string code, private. Should be a small letter. T and R comes this side. Okay, private. Let's check the second one. Private char type and private double weight. Okay. So once I'm done with this, those are all my attributes. Then I'm gonna do my default. I'm gonna do my. Let's check if they do have a default constructor here. They do not have a default constructor, so all of them they're parameterized. So now I need to quickly go to the description and check what parameter. So the parameterized constructor will initialize the code instance data members with the parameter value, and by default all assessment, or by default is all assessment control assessment. Okay, let me just quickly make sense of that. Okay, by default it's all assessment controlled assessment. So okay, let's come up here. Okay, let's check the second one, the overloaded parameterized constructor. That will initialize the 3 instant data members with the parameters. Okay. I think the first one, obviously, because if it's a string like that, the code is a string. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna do the first one, which is going to initialize. Okay, you come here, insert code. So we're gonna say code. Okay, which is this one. You're gonna generate. So now by default, I wanna get this part. It says by default, it's all assessment control assessment. Okay. So let's check here. 3 instant data members represent the code, which is the code assessment is C1, class test 1, semester test 1, assessment number 3, and all type of assessments are controlled. Okay, so the type, it means it's controlled when it's C, and online group, and then the final mark way. Okay, so but yeah, okay, now I understand this part. So when this part says that all assessment are controlled assessment, it means that it must be initialized to a C. So what we're gonna do is that when we get here, we're gonna say this dot type. This type is assigned to a small letter C. So this dot weight, I think this we can assign it to a 0 because it says that indicated by the weight instant member, because it says that this an assignment will contribute to the final mark here. So that is the weight that it's going to contribute towards the final mark. So in this case, we're just gonna keep it as a 0, meaning that it's gonna be 0. Nothing will be stored whenever we do that one. So okay, now for this one, it just the overloaded parameter rise constructor. The second one, it just initializes everything. So when we get here, we say select all, say generate. And yeah, I'm gonna start dealing with my getters and setters methods. Okay. So you can still practice those shortcuts. It's good, it's important. No, I'm done with the constructors. I need to do the getters and the setters method and set code. Say getters and setters method. You can do the getters and the setters method at the same time. Then it's just gonna code all of the getters and the setters method for you. So now we need to quickly go and work on the level of difficulty, which is this one, this method. So this method, the full description, it says that it's a public and then its level of difficulty and it returns a string. So now we're going to say public, it returns a string, and we're going to say level of difficulty. Let's check if it doesn't have a parameter inside. Okay, it doesn't have a parameter, so it should be fine. Let's do that. Okay, now we're gonna have to go level of difficulty. Okay, it's fine. So now we're gonna have to go and read the description. So when we go back here, it tells us that each assessment will have a level of difficulty. This level can be easy, moderate, or difficult. So the level of difficulty is determined by the weight of the assessment contributes well as the type of assessment. So any assessment that contributes 10% or less, it will be easy. An assessment that contributes 10%, but more than 40%, but 40% or less, it should be classified as an easy, group, or open type assessment. So, okay, so there are two things which are being assigned. It's easy, that's the level of difficulty, and it also assigns the type of assessment it is, whether it's an open or it's a controlled. So it says here, but it's classified moderate if it's online. Okay, and then it says here, difficult if it's controlled assessment. So if it contributes more than 40%, it's classified as easy if it's a group assessment, and if it's it's classified moderate if it's an open assessment, and it's classified difficult if it's an online or control assessment. So, okay, now let's start from here. So the three, easy, moderate, and difficult. Okay, I just wanted to scan through whatever I'm supposed to be doing. So, okay, now the level of difficulty. So what we're gonna do is that when we get here, we're gonna say string let's say level diff, which is going to represent the level of difficulty. So now, after when we say level diff, which is going to represent the level of difficulty, that's a string where we're going to store inside. So okay, now the level of difficulty is weighted and contribute. Okay, so let's start with this one, 10% or less. So we're going to have our first if statement. We're going to control that using an if statement. But what are we controlling? We're controlling it using the weight. As you check here, it will say contributes. So that is because when you go up here, you will see that they say that the weight, it's how much a mark will contribute to the final mark. That is the weight. That is what we're dealing with. So that is what we're going to use to calculate the contribution. Thus, control. So we're going to say if the weight is less than or equals to 10.0, because it's a double, still fine. Then that way it's going to check if it's less than 10%. And then let's do the other one. else if, let's first deal with the if statements and then we'll deal with the other stuff. So it's 10% or less, then it's fine. We're going to just classify it as easy. And then it's more than 10%, more than, it's not equals to, it's more than. So, but 40% or less, meaning that for the 40% is less than or equals to 40%. Be careful about that. So now, if weight, if weight is greater than 10%, and you show it by using this double sign, and then you say is less than or equals to 40%. So 40.0, still fine. Let's put a 0.0 here because we are dealing with the double. Okay. So, okay, the last one. Then there is a one which says that when it's more than 40%, that is what we need to control. So we'll then say else if weight is more than 40% now, 40.0, then there is something that we need to do. Okay, that we have. And okay, once we have that, then we can go back to here. Then we want to check if it's inside the 10% or less, what must it be classified as? So it must be classified as an easy assessment. Okay. So now it means we'll go back there. Here it's just simple. The level of difficulty will just be easy. So, but when we get to the second part, which is more than 10%, but is less than or equals to 40%, there's a little bit more work that needs to be done. So, okay, it says if an assessment contributes more than 10%, but 40% or less, it should be classified as easy if it's a group or open assignment. If it's a group or open assessment type, but classified as moderate if it's online, and if it's controlled, it must be that. So now we need to come back here and check there is a controlled, open, online, and group. But what controls that is type. So it means when we get here, we need to have a nested if statement inside this else if. So we need to have if type is equivalent to, we need to check based on this. If type is equivalent to, they said if it's an open or an online, or is it open or group or open or group? So we need to say if it's equivalent to a P, that one is for open, or type is a group. I think it's represented by a G. Yes, a group is represented by a G. But let's quickly just go down. Here is it. If it's a group or it's open, and it's represented like this, then the level of difficulty will be easy. Like that. And then we have a else if. This needs to be small letters. Programming is a case-sensitive language. Java is a case-sensitive language. Okay, now, if it's online, we're going to say that it's moderate. So which one represents online? O represents online. So we need to go back here. We'll say if type is a O, Then level of diff. No, it's not level of, it's level diff. Let me not make a mistake. Is more moderate. And then we have another else if type is C for controlled, level diff, meaning that the level of difficulty will then be what? The level of difficulty will be difficult. Okay, coming back here. Difficult. Very difficult. So now those are the ones which need to control whenever we're where the side. That is what needs to control. Okay, difficult when it's control assessment. And then for the last one, which is the 40%, which needs to come in this last one, which is this one. We need to check. It says that it's classified as easy if it's a group assessment. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna be a little bit lazy. I'm gonna copy this because it's the same. It's just that the only difference here, it doesn't take the open, it only takes the group. That's the only difference. It's moderate when it's an open assessment. So I'm gonna take this else if, be lazy, copy, paste it here. So, but the said when it's open, I'm gonna use P, small letter. There we go. So, okay. That is P when it's open, and it's difficult when it's online or control. So we're gonna have the last one, which is difficult, or type O for open. As you can see here, I mean online, when it's online or controlled. Let's just verify. Online is a O, open is a P. And that is it. So now, then it says we will determine and return the level of difficulty. So we are done determining the level of difficulties using these if statements. It's going to use these if statements and go through them, all of them. And then at the end, what we need to do here is that we just need to return level diff. So guys, what I try and do with all of these assessments is that I try and I attack them heads on without me checking them out or working them out before. Reason being is because I want to make sure that I give the best knowledge which I understand on my level. I don't want to sound like it's scripted and all of those. So we want to give it as first hand as we can. So bear in mind, some places whenever I make mistakes, but it's programming. It's yakala this side, and but you just move on with fixing your errors and all of those bugs are bugs in programming. It always happens each and every single time. So okay, it's just telling me that I can convert this with a switch, but I don't want to do that. I want to use if, else if you can do anything. So okay, we are done with this. I think we are done with our backend class. So now when we are done with this UML diagram, we just need to verify that everything is fine and everything seems to be proper. But if we have missed out anything, we'll come back to it. So now it says create an application. We have already done that. and main method and complete the following tasks. So it says now, create the first assessment object. There's going to be a second assessment object. There's going to be a third assessment object. There's going to be a fourth assessment object. So we're going to have assessment 1, assessment 2, assessment 3, and assessment 4. So, okay, when we get here, obviously, the first thing that we need to do is the process of class instantiation. And then when we're doing class instantiation, what we need to look into is that we need to create an assessment object. So we are having assessment. Okay, let's call them like this. Assessment number 2, assessment number 3, and assessment number 4. Those are our different objects. So now what we need to do is that we need to import up there. Okay, and then after importing that, that is fine. Let us deal with our declarations. Okay, what is it that we're gonna input here? Is that okay? And then it says the code is class test, but what it says here, it doesn't say that we need to create an application that will have to. Okay, but it's fine. There is something that we need to declare here. We will need a string, and the string will be the level of diff, which is gonna be the level of difficulty. And then now I'm gonna need a helper method, private static void. This is to display. So in here I'm gonna pass a string level of, okay, let me call it level diff. Okay, so inside here I'm just gonna have to display the level of difficulty. So I'm gonna say system.r.println the level for this assessment is, and then we're gonna say level diff. This is just gonna display. So okay, now that is what I'm gonna use in order for me to do this part. Software reuse. I'm not gonna repeat this. I'm just gonna have a helper method which is gonna be doing this for me. Yeah, okay. Then that should be fine. Then I'm gonna have to do okay, it says now we must use the mutator method. Okay. Okay. It's both the constructor with one parameter. So the constructor with one parameter takes in what? CT. Okay. So here it says the constructor with one parameter. Also, we must use the constructor with the 3 parameters. So it's different for each and every one of them. Okay, let us look at this one first. Okay, let me highlight this. All right, so the first assessment, it says that it must use the constructor with one parameter, and it must set the code to CT1. Okay. I'm gonna come back and expand on this. I'm gonna need more information. What I'm gonna do here is that I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna say assessment. And then I'm gonna say assess. So before I can do that, let me just do this string disp empty string. I want to display this in one place. I'm going to say disp is assigned to disp.concat. Then I'm going to say the code of the assessment is assess.getCode. New line. Okay, let's put in a semicolon. And then we're going to say the weight is dot weight get weight. Okay. New double quote, new line. And then what I'm gonna need is that I'm also gonna need this line. Okay. And then here, I'm just gonna display this. Okay. Coming up here. So here we're gonna see for assessment one. Okay. And then since for assessment one, we must use the one parameter. So we're gonna say assessment one is assigned to new. The constructor that we are supposed to use is the one with one parameter. And that one, what it just assigns, it assigns CT1 as our code. Okay. All right. And then once we do that, we have assigned the assessment as that. And now what we want to do is that we want to put in a weight, but it forces us to use the one parameter. So it means we need to use a mutator method to set what? To set the weight. So now after this, we're gonna have to set the weight. So we're gonna have to say assess1 dot set weight, and the weight is going to be 15.0, which is still the same as 15%. Why? Because it's supposed to be a double. Okay. Now, so and the assessment type is what? Is online. So we need to use another mutator method. We need to set the type. So we're going to say assess1 dot set type. And in here, we're going to say O for online. Not get, set. It's S here. Okay. So now that should be sufficient. And then now what we would want to do is that we'll want to display. So to display the details, we'll then have to say display. We're calling our helper method. And inside here, we're passing what? Okay, I have this here, which I shouldn't have in a way. Okay, I just thought about it now, and I can also remove it from here, because if I have the object here as assessment number 1, there's no need for me to do that. I'll show you just now. I'm gonna say assessment 1, and then here for me to display the level of difficulty, I'll just have to say assess dot get dot level of difficulty, which is this one. There is it, because we're already having it. It's working in the back end. Here's it. So there's no need for me to declare that. Some other stuff you'll realize a little bit later that you do not need them, just to avoid software reuse and all of those kind of stuff. Okay, but repeating unnecessary stuff. I think you get what I'm trying to say. Okay, now we are done for assessment number 1. It's going to be able to set the code to CT1. It's going to be able to set the weight to 15% and also set the assessment type. So now we are done with that. Now we need to do this one. And I also need to be careful, which I do not read, I think. It says display the code and the level of difficulty. So the only things that we're supposed to display here is just the code and level of difficulty. But it's fine. Let us keep it that way. But be careful whenever you're reading that. But since me, I'm just moving here. Okay, this is for assessment. Number 2. And then let's read carefully now. It says that for the second assessment, we need to use the constructor with 1 parameter. Again, still the same. And then the mutator methods to do the following assessment, and then it must be a group. So this one, I'm gonna copy and paste. I'm gonna be a little bit lazy. Zakal. I had cut it out. I don't need to cut. I need to copy, and then I need to paste here. So yeah, I'm just gonna change here. This is gonna be a 2. This is gonna be a 2. That is gonna be a 2. And yeah, I think it says it must be CT2. Yes. CT2, and the weight must be 35. 35.0. And then yeah, the type, I think it said it should be group, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it should be a group. And then it must display the code and the level of difficulty. That should be sufficient. Moving on. Okay, this one, it says it must use the constructor with 3 parameters. And it says that the code must be ST1, the weight must be 45, and must be controlled. So for this one, it's a little bit different. For assessment number 3. So when I get here, I'll need to comment and say for assessment number 3. Okay, should get a little bit of space. No, I'm doing it. I'm supposed to do it after displaying. Sorry about that. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm supposed to do it after here. So I'm gonna say for assessment 3. Then in this section, I'm gonna copy again and paste, but I'm gonna change a few stuff. Be careful of this. Do it at your own risk. This one, the code is ST1. So the code is ST1. The weight is 45. And type is controlled. So it must be a C here, small letter, remember. But this, we do not need it. Because remember they said we must use the 3 parameters. I almost forgot about that. Okay, now we need to go back to how we have declared it this side. We need to, okay, firstly is the code, the type, and the weight. That is what I wanted to check. So the code, the type, it's supposed to be C controlled, and the weight, it must be 45. So okay, for this one, it's just standard, it's just that. And this must also change, it must be a 3. So yeah, it must be S3 for assessment 3. Okay. So yeah, for assessment 4, all right, so for assessment 4, let's highlight it. It's pink. So okay, it says create the final assessment with the object with the 3 parameters is fine. And then it must be assessment, it must be 5%, it must be group. So it repeats the same thing as this. I'm gonna copy this. Let me leave out the comment. Click here, paste. And then here, it says it must be assessment, what? Okay, it must be assessment number 1. And the type, it must be group. So here it's gonna be G, small letter. And the contribution must be 5. Okay. So yeah, we must also change assessment 4 and assessment 4. Okay. So I want that when we get here, okay. Now for neatness of code, before you can continue, I'd like it to go to a new line. Open a space, go to a new line. Why am I doing this one? It's the other way. Sorry about that. Simple stuff that I almost made a mistake from. Okay, so there we have it. Okay. So I'm gonna run my code. And there you have it. The code is CT1, 15%, and it should be moderate. The code of the assessment CT2, or for this one, it's supposed to be CT2. So now we are just fixing minor errors. Okay, CT2. Why is it saying CT1? Okay. That's assessment number 2. Okay, it's because here we're displaying assessment 1. It's supposed to be assessment 2 here, assessment 3, and assessment 4. Okay, that should be fine. It's just a logic error. Okay. Yeah, now it's having the proper stuff. So I'll leave it to you guys to confirm. But so far, so good. It looks proper because we remember when it's this 15%, so it is going to depend on what we have written this side on the if statement. Let's just confirm with the first one. So, okay, but let me just go back to the question. So it says that it's an online and it's 15%. It's online and it's 15%. So coming back here, okay. So it's online and it's 15%. So coming back here, it's 15, it's here, between here, and it's online. So it's moderate, meaning that it's correct. And sorry about that. Okay, so it's moderate. That's correct. So for the other one, it's 35%, and it's a group. Coming back here, 35% should be here. A group should be easy. And there we go, it's easy. So, and there you have it. That's how you do this kind of a question. And that is it from me for today till we drop the next one. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment below. And also give us ideas on what exercises or whatever that you want us to do. So to contact us, if you have an exercise that you want us to do, send me an email on khodisolouis7@gmail.com. khodisolouis7@gmail.com. And I'm gonna respond to that with a video and recording. And that is it from me for today. Cheers.